3 weeks ago, something happened that should make anyone with money in Tesla completely rethink their position. Elon Musk sold another $5 billion in Tesla bringing his total sales over the last 3 years to over $40 billion. Let that sink in for a moment. The man who built the company, who knows every detail of the operation, who has access to information you and I will never have, is systematically selling his own shares. And while Wall Street was busy justifying why this doesn't matter, I was looking at the numbers that actually matter. And those numbers tell me that Tesla isn't just overvalued, it's dangerously overvalued at a time when its competitive position has never been more fragile. Let me be absolutely clear about what's happening. Tesla is trading at a market capitalization of about $600 billion, more than Toyota, Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW, and Ford combined. But here's the part nobody wants to discuss. Tesla sold 1.8 million vehicles last year. Toyota sold over 10 million. Volkswagen sold 9 million. And yet, Tesla is worth more than all these companies put together. The math simply doesn't work unless you believe Tesla will completely dominate the global automotive industry over the next decades without serious competition. And I can tell you, after studying businesses for 70 years, that fantasy is about to collide brutally with reality. You see, I've spent my entire career avoiding automobile companies because they're terrible businesses. They require massive capital, face brutal economic cycles, have thin margins, and are constantly vulnerable to technological disruption and fierce competition. Tesla has all these traditional automotive industry problems, but also adds entire new layers of risks that traditional automakers don't face. They depend on a CEO who is simultaneously running 6 other companies and constantly posting on Twitter. They're burning money trying to develop autonomous driving that keeps being 5 years in the future, no matter how many years pass. And now they're facing real competition for the first time. Here's what really scares me about Tesla. The entire company depends on narratives about the future instead of profits in the present. They say they'll have robotaxis that will generate trillions in value. They say full self-driving is almost ready, despite promising this since 2015. They say they'll revolutionize energy storage, insurance, and half a dozen other industries. But meanwhile, in the real world, their margins are shrinking, competition is intensifying, and the man who built the company is selling shares as fast as legally allowed. When the founder is selling billions and investors are buying based on promises that never materialize, you have all the ingredients for disaster. Charlie Munger told me once before he died that Tesla was one of the most insane valuations he'd ever seen. And Charlie lived through every major bubble of the last century. He saw the stock madness of the 20s, the electronics boom of the 60s, the dot-com mania, the housing bubble. And he said Tesla was among the worst in terms of disconnect between price and reality. Now, with competition intensifying from all sides, with margins falling, and with Elon himself selling, that insane valuation is about to meet reality. And when that happens, a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money. The question isn't but when and how severe the fall will be. Let me tell you a story about the automotive industry that perfectly explains why I'm so worried about Tesla. In the 50s and 60s, General Motors was America's most powerful company. They had nearly 50% market share, superior technology, and a brand that seemed invincible. Analysts said GM could never be toppled because their dominance was too great, their economies of scale were too strong, and their technological advantage was too significant. Then came the Japanese. Toyota and Honda started small, making cars that GM dismissed as inferior. But slowly, year after year, they improved quality, reduced costs, and gained market share. Within 3 decades, GM went from invincible to bankrupt. Tesla is now in the position GM was in the 60s, except the threat is moving much faster. BYD in China sold over 3 million electric vehicles last year, nearly double Tesla's output. They're not just selling in China, they're aggressively expanding into Europe, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and will eventually come to the United States. And here's the part that should terrify Tesla investors. BYD is selling comparable quality electric vehicles for 20 to 30% less than Tesla. They manufacture their own batteries, vertically control their supply chain, and have the full backing of the Chinese government, which sees them as national champions. It's not just BYD. Volkswagen has invested over $100 billion in electrification and is launching electric vehicles in every segment. Hyundai and Kia are making excellent EVs that win quality awards. Mercedes, BMW, and Audi have finally taken electric seriously and are bringing decades of manufacturing expertise to market. Ford has invested $50 billion in electrification. GM is spending $35 billion. Even companies you've never heard of, like NIO, Xpeng, and Li Auto in China, are making technologically impressive vehicles. Tesla had the electric vehicle market practically to itself for a decade. That era is over, and they're not prepared for what comes next. Here's where it gets particularly dangerous for Tesla. They've responded to growing competition by doing the only thing they could do: slashing prices drastically. Over the last 18 months, Tesla has cut prices by 20 to 30% across various models. This stimulated sales temporarily, but destroyed their margin. Tesla's automotive gross margin has fallen from nearly 30% to about 18%. That's still decent, but it's falling rapidly, and the direction is clear. When you're in a price war with Chinese manufacturers who have structurally lower costs and traditional automakers who have deep pockets, you can't win by cutting prices. You just accelerate your own margin destruction. The situation in China is particularly revealing because it shows Tesla's future everywhere. Tesla used to dominate China's premium electric vehicle market. Now their market share is falling rapidly. BYD has completely overtaken them. Local Chinese brands are eating their customer base. And the Chinese government is, not so subtly, favoring domestic manufacturers through subsidies, preferential access to licenses, and pressure on state-owned companies and government officials to buy Chinese. Tesla built a massive factory in Shanghai betting that China would be their largest growth market. That bet is falling apart before their eyes. When you lose in China, where electric vehicle growth is fastest, you lose the whole game. And Tesla is losing in China. Now let's talk about the thing that should really keep Tesla investors awake at night: the promise of autonomous driving. Elon Musk has been promising fully autonomous driving since 2015. He said that in 2016, you could summon your Tesla from Los Angeles to New York without touching the wheel. He said that in 2017, there would be 1 million Tesla robotaxis on the street. He said that in 2020, full self-driving would be complete. Here we are in 2025, and full self-driving still requires constant driver supervision, still makes dangerous mistakes, and still isn't anywhere close to being truly autonomous. But Tesla's valuation assumes this is about to happen any moment. Here's the brutal reality nobody wants to face. Autonomous driving is a much harder technical problem than anyone expected. Waymo, which is owned by Google and has had more resources and time than any other company, has only managed to make it work in limited geographic areas under specific conditions. Cruise, owned by General Motors, had to halt operations after accidents. Apple spent a decade and billions of dollars on autonomous cars before giving up completely. Every company that seriously attacked this problem discovered it's exponentially harder than it seemed. And yet, with far fewer resources and an approach most experts consider inferior, is somehow supposed to solve what nobody else has solved. Tesla's valuation depends completely on you believing they'll have autonomous robotaxis generating massive revenue in the coming years. Elon has said each Tesla could generate $30,000 per year as a robotaxi. Multiply that by millions of vehicles, and you have trillions in potential value. Sounds wonderful until you realize it's completely fantastical. First, the technology isn't there and may never get there. Second, even if it did, regulators would have to approve it, which would take years of testing and validation. Third, the economics of operating a robotaxi fleet are totally different from what Elon suggests. And fourth, competitors like Waymo are already years ahead in actual autonomous driving technology. Meanwhile, Tesla is spending billions developing this technology that may never work commercially. They're burning money on custom AI chips, massive supercomputers for training, and expensive engineers chasing a dream that has proven elusive for companies with far more expertise. Every dollar spent on autonomous driving is a dollar not being spent improving their actual vehicles, expanding production capacity, or developing new models to compete with the avalanche of EVs coming to market. Tesla is essentially betting the entire company on a technology that may not work, while ignoring the very real and immediate competitive threats that are eroding their core business. Let me put it in terms any rational investor should understand. Without autonomous driving and robotaxis, Tesla is just a car company. And car companies don't trade at 60, 80, or 100 times earnings. They trade at 5 to 10 times earnings because they're low, margin, capital intensive, and cyclically sensitive businesses. Toyota, the world's largest and most profitable automaker, trades at about 9 times earnings. Tesla trades at multiples tens of times higher because the market is pricing in the fantasy of robotaxis, not the reality of being an automaker. When that fantasy inevitably collides with reality, when people finally accept that full self-driving isn't coming anytime soon, Tesla's valuation will collapse. It won't be a 10 or 20% correction. It will be a fundamental revaluation that could easily cut the valuation by 50, 70, or even 80%. Let's talk about Elon Musk, because you can't discuss Tesla without discussing the man who is simultaneously its greatest strength and its greatest risk. Elon is arguably one of the most visionary entrepreneurs of our era. He built Tesla from nothing into the largest electric vehicle manufacturer. He made SpaceX revolutionize space travel. These are genuine achievements that deserve respect. But here's the problem Tesla investors need to face. Elon isn't focused on Tesla the way he used to be. He's running SpaceX, Neuralink, boring company, formerly Twitter, and now he's involved in politics and multiple other ventures. No human being can effectively run 6 companies simultaneously and give each one the attention it needs. The situation with Twitter, now X, is particularly revealing. Elon spent $4 billion buying the company, much of it financed by selling Tesla shares. He then spent months consumed with running Twitter, making erratic decisions that massively destroyed value. Estimates suggest Twitter is now worth less than $15 billion, meaning Elon burned nearly $30 billion in value within months. Meanwhile, Tesla was facing intensifying competition, margin erosion, and operational challenges, all while their CEO was obsessed with Twitter wars and fighting with advertisers. This isn't the behavior of someone focused on maximizing shareholder value. There's also the question of trust and credibility, which has deteriorated significantly. Elon promised full self-driving in 2016. Didn't happen. He promised 1 million robotaxis in 2020. Didn't happen. He promised the Cybertruck in 2019. It finally arrived 4 years late and at a much higher price than promised, with terrible margins. He promised the Tesla Semi would transform freight transport. There are practically none on the roads. He promised the next generation Roadster in 2017. Still hasn't been delivered. At some point, investors need to stop giving Elon credit for promises and start holding him accountable for non-delivery. Elon's personal behavior has also become an increasing risk to the Tesla brand. His controversial Twitter posts, his polarizing political statements, his public confrontations with regulators and critics, all of this alienates potential customers. Surveys show the Tesla brand has become significantly more polarizing, with many progressive consumers who historically were the core market for electric vehicles saying they wouldn't buy a Tesla because of Elon. When your company's CEO is actively alienating a significant portion of your customer base through his personal behavior, that's a serious problem that can't be ignored. Here's what really worries me about the Elon fact. Tesla has no real succession plan. The company is Elon. If something happens to him, or if he decides to focus on other ventures, or if his erratic behavior finally crosses a line that forces the board to act, what happens to Tesla? There's no obvious number 2. There's no deep management structure. It's a one-man show, And that man is increasingly distracted and increasingly controversial. Charlie and I always avoided investing in companies that depend on a single individual because people are unpredictable. They age, lose interest, make mistakes, or simply move on. A $600 billion company shouldn't depend completely on one person, no matter how brilliant. But Tesla does, and that's terrifying. Now let me address the argument I constantly hear from Tesla bulls. They say Tesla isn't just an automaker, it's a technology company that should be valued as such. They point to software, energy storage, solar panels, and autonomous driving as justifications for premium valuation multiples. This argument is fundamentally flawed for several reasons. First, over 90% of Tesla's revenue comes from selling physical cars. They're an automaker, no matter how they try to reposition themselves. Second, technology companies have high margins and low marginal costs. Tesla has to physically manufacture every vehicle they sell, with all the capital and variable costs that implies. This is manufacturing, not technology. The energy storage business that was supposedly going to be a massive second pillar of growth has been disappointing. Tesla sells Powerwall and Megapack systems, but faces intense competition from established energy companies, battery manufacturers, and startups. Margins are thin, scale is limited, and there's no real competitive Solar panels through the SolarCity acquisition was one of the worst deals Elon ever made. Tesla is essentially quietly exiting this business, scaling down operations and recognizing they can't effectively compete with specialized solar installers. The solar business isn't a growth story. It's a resource drain that diverted capital from where it was really needed. Let's also discuss the economic reality of electric vehicle manufacturing. Batteries, which are the most expensive component of an EV, have become increasingly commoditized. K8L in China, LG in Korea, Panasonic in Japan, and others manufacture batteries that any automaker can buy. Tesla used to have an advantage in battery technology, but that advantage has evaporated. Now they're buying cells from third-party suppliers just like everyone else. Electric motor technology is mature and widely available. Power electronics are no longer proprietary. What exactly makes Tesla special when the key components of their vehicles can be sourced by any competitor? The answer used to be software and autonomous driving, but we've already covered how that's going. Tesla's cost structure is also getting worse, not better. They built new factories in Austin and Berlin that had terribly expensive and problematic production ramps. The Cybertruck, which was supposed to showcase innovative manufacturing capability, turned out to be incredibly difficult and expensive to produce. Elon admitted they dug their own grave with the Cybertruck design. Meanwhile, Chinese manufacturers like BYD have structurally lower costs in labor, material, and production efficiency. Traditional automakers have decades of expertise in efficient manufacturing. Tesla is squeezed between low-cost competitors below and established luxury brands with no clear cost advantage or brand prestige to justify premium prices. Here's the reality Tesla investors need to accept. In the early days, when Tesla was small and the EV market was nascent, they could charge premium prices because they were practically the only viable option for a long-range, high-performance EV. That pricing dynamic is over. Now, there are dozens of excellent EVs available at every price point. Consumers have real choices, and many are choosing not Tesla. The Model 3 and Model Y that drive most of Tesla's sales are aging without significant updates while competitors launch newer, more advanced products. Tesla is becoming the stagnant incumbent that's being disrupted by newer, hungrier competitors, exactly the role they used to play against traditional automakers. The irony is delicious, but if you're holding Tesla, it's not funny, it's expensive. So here we are. And I want you to understand what I'm really saying about Tesla. I'm not saying they'll disappear tomorrow or that they make bad products. Tesla vehicles are generally well designed and their customers love them. What I'm saying is much more fundamental and important for anyone with money in this company. At $600 billion in market capitalization, Tesla is priced for a future that simply isn't going to happen. They're priced as if they'll dominate electric vehicles globally without serious competition, as if autonomous driving is months away, as if robotaxis will generate trillions in value, and as if none of the growing competitive threats or operational challenges matter. The math is brutally simple when you remove the fantasy. Tesla sold 1.8 million vehicles last year with falling margins. They're valued at $600 billion. Toyota sold 10 million vehicles with consistent margins and is valued at $250 billion. Can someone explain how Tesla is worth more than double Toyota when they sell less than 1/5 the vehicles and face far more risks? The only explanation is that investors are paying for dreams, not reality. And when you pay for dreams at extreme valuations, you eventually wake up to extreme losses. It's not if, it's when. What really bothers me about Tesla isn't just the insane valuation, it's what it represents about broader market mentality. When investors completely ignore fundamentals, when narratives about the future trump present profits, when the CEO selling $40 billion in stock is dismissed as irrelevant, you have all the classic characteristics of speculative mania. I saw this same psychology in dot-com stocks in 1990. I saw it in mortgage-backed securities in 2006. I saw it in cryptocurrency in 2021. And I'm seeing it now in Tesla and other overvalued technology stocks. History never changes, only the names of the companies. Now, some people will say I'm too old to understand disruptive technology, that I don't understand the future of electric vehicles and autonomy. But here's what I do understand after 70 years studying businesses. I understand that revenue needs to exceed expenses. I understand that competitive advantages need to be sustainable. I understand that when the founder is selling billions in stock, there's probably a reason. And I understand that when a company is valued at multiples that assume perfection for decades, any stumble results in catastrophic losses for investors who bought at the top. These lessons don't become obsolete just because we're talking about electric cars instead of railroads or dot-coms. My advice is straightforward. If you own Tesla stock, you need to ask an honest question. Are you investing based on sober analysis of fundamentals and valuation? Or are you holding because you hope someone will pay even more in the future? If it's the latter, you're not investing, you're speculating. And when speculation meets reality in the automotive industry, where margins are tight, competition is brutal, and cycles are inevitable, the outcome is rarely Elon Musk has sold $40 billion in Tesla stock in recent years. He knows something you don't. Maybe it's time to pay attention to what the man with the most information is doing, not what he's saying. Tesla's fall won't happen because they made bad cars. It will happen because investors finally realize they paid fantasy prices for an automotive manufacturing reality. And when that realization comes, it will be painful, quick, and very, very expensive for those still holding.